Hello, everybody. I'm Richard Sher, and it's time to square off. Let's quickly meet this week's panel.
I'm Chris Kennedy.
I'm Sheila Dixon.
I'm Hassan Giordano.
I'm Jimmy Mathis.
And I'm excited about this show. Lots of stuff going on, ladies and gentlemen. These are very scary times to fly. This after the Federal Aviation Administration released an emergency order late Thursday directing airlines to phase in a 10% reduction in domestic flights at dozens of major airports nationwide, including BWI Marshall International Airport, where many flights have already been canceled or delayed, hundreds of passengers stranded, crucial air traffic controllers working without paychecks, many taking second jobs, needing food, money for food, for childcare, for gas, for food. Jimmy Mathis, start us off, and this is scary.
Well, look, it's very much intended. Why air traffic controllers are not considered part of the essential workforce, I've never understood. I started on the radio almost 20 years ago, and we have been dealing with continuing resolution after continuing resolution after continuing resolution ever since. How we do not fund this country appropriately is amazing. Look, air travel is by design. It affects people. It makes people upset. It delays their jobs, their vacations. It's completely unnecessary, and it's really a shame.
Well, that's what happens.
Go ahead.
That's what happens, Jimmy, when the country ends up electing a bunch of immature men and women who continuously put their self-interest and the interest of their party and politics over that of the American people. From this to upending the lives of millions of people on SNAP benefits, all ahead of the upcoming holiday season, it's absolutely ridiculous. And it's time for the country to stand up and say enough is enough.
I just heard an interview with the Secretary of Transportation and CBS newscaster Gail, and she's getting ready to travel to California. And his reasoning was, of course, blaming the Democrats, but his reasons was the fact that many of the air traffic control folks now have to take side jobs. They're going to have to reduce it for the safety of people who are flying. My frustration and concern is the Congress is out. They're not working. The Senate comes in, they vote. Folks need to sit down. The president needs to take the leadership, bring everybody to the table and get this resolved. Because the bottom line is you have a lot of wealthy federal elected officials, the Congress, the Senate, most of them are wealthy. They're not going to miss a meal. Most of them are going to have their paychecks. But the people that are going to suffer are the people who are working for the U.S. citizens across this country. And it's unfortunate that we're in this state.
Chris, speak up.
This morning, the head of the Air Traffic Controllers Union said something very telling. He said, "We are the rope in this terrible tug of war." And how eloquent that was, to be using human lives as a tactic to force the end of a shutdown. And that's what Trump and Duffy are doing, and that's terrible. I think part of it is to look after flight travelers, but I think part of it is waiting, God forbid, waiting for something horrible to happen, like a plane to crash, and to try to blame that on Chuck Schumer, because anything is possible in the mind of Donald Trump. He is looking outward. I think he's no longer looking inward. He's only on Truth Social. He's visited as many foreign countries this year, 14, as he has American states, 14. And I hope I'm wrong about waiting for a plane to crash, but I fear that I'm right.
This is really not a partisan issue. Again, we've had 40 government shutdowns going back to Reagan, almost 40, and intentionally it goes after what's going to hurt the most, right? It's shutting down national parks. It's air traffic controllers. It's SNAP. It's all this is by design. And it's fine. People want to politicize it right now and put it on Trump or whatever. I mean, this is going back almost as long as I've been alive. we've been dealing with this. So at some point, we have to start not having these huge omnibus bills, not funding the country with 6 months CRs. I mean, when does that conversation actually happen? And we stop allowing the federal government to manipulate us the way that they do.
No, I mean, I agree with Jimmy on these CRs and every 6 months. I mean, we elect our federal individuals at the Congress and the Senate level to be able to go in and work for the citizens. And I'm sorry, both parties, in my opinion, are wrong in this incident of shutting down as long as it has been shut down. And ultimately, businesses are going to suffer, and that's starting to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And other individuals are going to also suffer. But the fact that you have the president giving a Gatsby party, which I was like, Floyd, my mouth dropped during this time, and him not taking the leadership to say, enough is enough. Let's get this country open. Sit down, both parties. They're not even willing to meet the Democrats.
Richard, if I could again, I think it's really naive for John Thune to say, well, let's just vote on this clean CR and then we'll get to the Obamacare stuff that you want to talk about. They won't. And the Democrats are not looking for something extra, something new. They're just looking for the continuation of the benefits that have existed since the Supreme Court blessed Obamacare. And I think, quite frankly, the reason for the 6-month CRs is because both parties know that whatever party is in the minority at a given time can use that 6-month opportunity to try to get something from the party in power. And that's why I think there's no interest across the board in increasing these CRs from 6 months to 2 years or 5 years.
Do you really believe that this is about Obamacare? Seriously?
Yeah, that's the only thing that they're asking for, Jimmy. They're not asking for other
I know that's
things.
what they're asking for.
That's one of many things that they're asking for. But this is very important, not just, and we can call it Obamacare, whatever you want to call it. It's about rising medical costs. It's going to impact people's lives. People are going to die as a result of these increases. Why is it everywhere else in the world, many in Europe and other places, the medical systems are more socialized where you know what you're paying, you know what you're getting, you get better care than you get here. And then you have a Kennedy who heads up the Department of Health, who has no expertise.
But here's the problem, though, right? And I get it. These are very serious issues that both parties want to address. But while you're taking a stance and using this as leverage, right? Because that's all it is.
Right.
Politics is using the battle of leverage. You're sacrificing people's lives, right? 40+ million people aren't going to eat over the next 30 days because they refuse to give them the SNAP benefits that they've already been given and approved. Millions of people are going to suffer from seeing their families because they can't travel and get to where they are. So while those issues are very important, we can have those conversations after we open up the government and people start getting checks. Because think about the millions of people who are, whether it's air traffic control or these essential employees who are working day after day but not getting a dollar. They still got to pay rent. They still got to pay electricity. They still got to put gas in their tank. And yet both parties are using this as leverage for their own political gain.
So maybe I'm missing
shortage. Hold on one second. Jimmy, wait. Jimmy, hold. Staffing shortages have already caused tens of thousands of flight delays or cancellations, with airlines estimating that more than 3.2 million travelers have been affected already and will become effective. And like Chris said, is this a tragedy waiting to happen? We're talking about airplanes.
What am I missing on this? The Treasury is still bringing in $4.3 trillion, correct? Treasury is still funded. There's still money going out. Like, I mean, seriously, other than a self-inflicted wound, what am I missing on this? The government is still funded, okay? People are still paying taxes. You still have withholding. You still have Social Security going. What am I missing on this? Other than the theatrics of it. Seriously.
Well, it's more than the theatrics. People are not getting their paychecks.
But Sheila, I hear you. But my point
People
is the
have
government
bills
is
to
still
pay.
being. I hear you, but but it's self-inflicted. The government is still being funded. I hear you. I
Correct.
do.
But they
But
put a freeze on it. They put a
right.
freeze on it.
And the question is why? Right? Like, I mean, it's a self-inflicted wound. That's my point. I'm not saying that there's not real suffering coming out of this. I understand there's real people being hurt all across the board on it, but it's completely unnecessary.
It is unnecessary, and that's the frustration that the American people are seeing right through. You can sit up there and blame the next party and yell on why this isn't happening, but I think the Republicans are doing a disservice. And again, I'm not putting this all on, even though they control every chamber of Congress and the White House at this point. But even with the SNAP stuff, right? You have the money and the ability, like you said, Jimmy, to fund this. You've had 2 federal judges mandate that you do this, and instead of doing it, you're kind of reeling it back and saying, "Well, no, not right now. We're not going to will it until the Democrats and their shutdown is reopened." That I think is going to hurt the party. It's going to hurt the president in these midterms. It's really going to hurt them if they don't act like adults and start, like you said, using the money available to save lives, and then worry about the other issues after they open up the government and pay for what they need to pay for.
Yeah, but you know,
I think there's also distrust, and that's why the Democrats are not moving forward, because they can say, yeah, let's discuss this after we open up the government, but the folks in the Capitol, they know that they can't trust many of those Republicans.
They'll have to answer for that at the polls next year. But while they
they won't,
and they don't show up at the table, you got millions of people who are suffering on a daily basis. That's not fair.
No, I agree.
Richard, the other fact is this: as we saw this past Tuesday, whenever Donald Trump's not on the ballot, Republicans get creamed. Okay, he's never going to be on a ballot again. He knows it. I bet have strong suspicions that Thune has been begging Susie Wiles to get Trump to come down and sit with Schumer and Jeffries to try to hammer something out. But I think Trump is becoming less engaged with domestic policies, especially the fact that he can't do anything about the 3 campaign issues that the Democrats won on, which are affordability, affordability, and affordability. He can lie all he wants about a number of issues, but you can't lie about the price of the loaf of bread that you can't afford to buy for your family in front of you. And that's not going to change. So there has to be some sort of come to Jesus moment for Trump where he decides to get involved again with his domestic politics and his economy, rather than getting involved with the blueprints for his ballroom.
The problem, Chris, is I don't know that there is a solution. I really think that this country has hit the point of no return when it comes to the economy, when it comes to debt, when it comes to unfunded liabilities. I think that's a little bit of what we're seeing right now. We've tried to, inflate our way out of it. I think this is the point of reckoning. I don't know if that takes a year, 5 years, 10 years, but I think that's a little bit of what we're seeing right now. And there is no politician, there's no party that can fix this. I mean, this is decades of unreasonable spending, operating off of the American dollar. We've had a pass because of that. I think that's where we're at right now.
All right, what we're going to do.
1%, real quick, 1% of Americans own 90% of our wealth.
Okay.
That's ridiculous. Okay.
It is.
There are a number of the people standing behind him at his inauguration who haven't paid federal taxes in decades. And quite frankly, the big tactic is real estate depreciation. You can go get your own friend to come in and say, oh, this property that I own just depreciated 40% in value. And then you get to take that right off your taxes and nobody can do anything about it. Until that is fixed, these multi-billionaires will continue to get away with paying taxes.
You can't tax your way out of this, Chris. You can't tax your way out of this. The GDP of the entire country is $20 trillion.
Billionaires are not paying taxes at all. Of course you can tax your way out of it because they're not paying anything.
Stop. We're going to take a break. We're going to move on to the elections from Tuesday. And they were kind of exciting if you're a Democrat. Let's hear from the voice of Square Off, ladies and gentlemen. Here's Howard Mallison.
Thank you, Richard. You know, if you or a family member has experienced personal injury, medical malpractice, or nursing home neglect, it's time to call the law firm of Barry Glazer. He has the legal team and resources to go after the big insurance companies to get you every penny he can. And with an in house medical doctor and nurse, his attorneys work on the toughest and most complex medical malpractice cases there are. Barry Glazer is your best advocate for the injured, disabled, and medically abused. So give Barry Glazer a call at 410-547-8568 and let him know you heard about him on Square Off. And you know, with so many cars on the road and distracted drivers everywhere, auto accidents will happen. And if you've experienced an accident, the insurance companies can't tell you where to take your car. That's why more and more drivers are trusting their auto repairs and maintenance to leading edge auto body and mechanical repair. They work on all makes and models and offer free pickup and delivery anywhere in the Baltimore area. So give them a call at 410-443-6433 or visit them at 5807 Falls Road in the heart of Mount Washington. They make your car look and run like new again. Back to you, Richard.
Kay Howard and Annabelle and I love Leading Edge. These guys, Jeff Siegel and the whole crew, fabulous. Tell you, your car will look like brand new car. Now, let's talk about Tuesday's elections. The Democrats have an awful lot to be celebrating. Democrat Zohran Mondami is the next mayor of New York, the first Muslim mayor ever. In Virginia, Abigail Spanberger flips the government from Republican to Democrat. In New Jersey, Democrat Mickey Sherrill defeats a Republican aligned with Donald Trump. In California, voters passed Proposition 50, allowing a new legislative drawn congressional map from 2026 to 2030. It's a big win for the Democrats. What are your thoughts about this, Sheila?
Well, it's exciting that we've made some history with the first woman governor of Virginia. Mondami in New York, I think he's going to get a rude awakening, no offense, on some of this free transportation, free childcare. I mean, he comes from a wealthy family, so he could talk free. But I think that the direction that he's going to take New York is not necessarily the best route to go. I'm sorry. I just think that he's going to get a rude awakening. I think this is a message that we are sending the Republicans that not only with the shutdown, but what has happened since the Trump administration has come into power, that people are not happy, that there are very vindictive, ugly, evil individuals that are running the government at the federal level. And I think people are seeing this across the board. And I'm a Democrat, but I'm more independent than Democrat, but I'm a Democrat. But I think that our message has to be very clear in this upcoming 2026 election. I mean, we've got to make some significant change, and we have to come on board with the same message across the board.
So elections have consequences, and we'll see what happens in New York City. You run on promises that you can't deliver on, and Sheila, I totally agree with you on that. I do, however, believe that, and nobody's talked about this, that if you move to another state, you should not be able to participate in local elections for 2 years, 4 years. Like, you have people that are abandoning states for whatever reason, and then they bring their ideology to other states. So
why do you feel that way, Jim?
Because if you're leaving a state that's failing, okay, then you should, plant your seed a little bit in, whatever state you're moving to before you have skin in the game. Look, California failing, New York, it's a little bit of pass because of media and the financial aspect of it. Liberal states are failing all over the place. Florida is not. I mean, and everybody's escaping to Florida.
Well, look, a rising tide, they say, lifts all ships. And I think this was really the sentiment in this particular election. As Speaker Johnson said, a lot of people are getting excited, but Democrats basically held the line, right? They won in blue districts. But I think he's missing a lot of points and key points there. This was about the economy. and it's going to be about the economy going into 2026. And Democrats need to pay attention, because if you look at the local races, especially on the Virginia side of things, you had Democrats winning in red, very red districts that Trump won by almost 15 points in some of them. So if they stay to that message, and if things continue to be what they have in the first year of the Trump administration into next year, I think you're going to see at least the House being taken over by Democrats, if not the Senate as well.
Hassan, it's what we were talking about at the beginning of the show. I don't disagree with you guys. The reality is the majority of Americans can't afford to live, right? I mean, this is not a Republican or a Democratic issue, which is what the mayoral race in New York was all about, right? Like, I mean, people just can't get by.
But I don't think I disagree that you're saying it's not a Republican or a Democratic issue. It's the policies and the failed policies of the Trump administration specifically that has people in this situation right now. From the promise of the tariffs and what that was going to mean to people, like this economy wasn't the way it was 10 years ago, right? And so there is the
Richard,
if
I may,
this is the whole
Richard,
guys.
Richard,
so go ahead and give away more free.
Richard,
What?
I'd like to say something.
Chris, go on. You guys.
Thank you.
Don't Billy Buster. Go ahead.
Well, I welcome the return of moderate Democratic policies, as we saw this past Tuesday. It was a real kick in the teeth for Donald Trump, because he thought that, Virginia is clearly purple and it's getting more red and we're going to win that. And hey, keep your eye on New Jersey because it ain't blue anymore. It's going purple and maybe we can turn that red. Well, he got kicked in the teeth, okay, in those two statewide elections, which is why he hasn't said anything about that. Because as Hassan correctly and astutely pointed out, Democrats learned their lesson, I hope, from getting their teeth kicked in last year by Trump, which is it's about the economy. It's about the economy, stupid, as a famous politician, lobbyist once said. Anyway, they kept their mouth shut this past election cycle on identity politics. They bit their tongue and stayed away from it, all right? And they stuck to affordability because that's the thing that's going to turn it around. And that's what's going to end this MAGA movement, hopefully, in 2028, is if you just focus on economic fairness. And economic fairness always resides with the Democratic Party. I'm sorry, it always has and always will.
These Democratic victories are being widely interpreted as a rebuke of Trump-era Republican brand as tied to Trump. So do you believe these victories on Tuesday will eventually hurt Trump and the Republicans in the midterms in next November?
So I have a quick question. So economic fairness, is that what we're seeing here in Maryland with the increase of every toll, every tax, every fee across the board that's going after small business owners, that's trying to float this liberal agenda? Is that economic fairness?
No, we're not seeing economic fairness right now, Maryland.
No, you're not.
There's some work that has to be done, and we really need to shake our General Assembly up as well as the governor, because we're not. And so I'm in agreement with you on that one. But I also agree with Chris that we've got to get to a point where we have a moderate philosophy where we create the kind of environment. Because what's happening is people now are moving to states that meet their economic goals and their budgets. And so we're losing people here in the state of Maryland. So we're not from my perspective, we're not. But nationally, it's got to be more balanced. It has to be. And unfortunately, I just think it's Trump's philosophy and what he's doing, but also what his department heads are doing, what his secretaries are doing. I mean, the way they talk to people, the way that they project. I mean, the way they deal with the Congress. Disrespectfully. It's getting out of control.
And look, they just did a national poll that 67% of both Democrats and Republicans feel that a more moderate approach to government is something that they would actually buy into. The problem is on both sides, whether it's to the left or to the right, we've gotten and allowed the extremists to take over the primaries, which has led to victories, as we saw in New York and prior to that in other states on the right to allow these extremists to become and get into office. And that's why we've led to this division both in Congress and across the country. You see the liberal movement taking over when it comes to public safety and these, don't lock anybody up type of approach, where I think most Marylanders or most Americans would believe that we want to hold people accountable and not just pat them on the shoulder and say good job and pay them after they just committed a crime. We have to get back to the center. At the end of the day, that's what we have to get.
And that's the problem with the constant redistricting that again, because it leads to those extremes on both sides, and both parties are guilty of that. But that's the
Texas
problem.
True first blood.
Yeah,
Texas true first blood.
Yes. And what's happening with that is wrong. You follow the process and the protocol, and now we're going to do the tit for tat. But that's probably another show talking about Maryland, because I think we're moving in the wrong direction with that.
Chris, what do you mean first blood?
Well, as Sheila just alluded to, the redistricting, the gerrymandering has been around for a long time. And, I'm not just accusing Republicans of it. Democrats did it as well here in Maryland. And Judge Battaglia schooled them for it a couple of years ago, and finally came up with a situation where there's only one Republican seat in the state. So I think, Governor Moore trying to come up with a plan to do away with that is, quite frankly, silly. And it's just a publicity stunt from someone that thinks he's got a national future ahead of him, which I don't think he does. But gerrymandering.
Why do you say that?
I think Westmore needs to come to grips with the fact that he's not going to be president of the United States, and he's not going to be the Democratic nominee. And the sooner he does that, he can put his head down and start working on the real tasks of turning our state around. But I just feel that most cameras and microphones present a campaign TV commercial opportunity for him, and he needs to stop doing that. So I'll just leave it at that.
Hold on, Hassan.
But to finish the gerrymandering thought, you just can't change the rules all the time to try to influence the results of elections. And that's what Texas did. Okay, so now California had to respond, and Missouri's getting involved in it, and several other states are as well.
That's the whole purpose. And I think, thank God for reasonable people like Senate President Bill Ferguson, who said, look, we've tried that before and we got smacked on our hand, as you say, Chris. And it showed that it doesn't benefit us as a party, because I think if you look at the long term, you might have only one Republican now, but if you redistrict, you only have but so many Democrats in the state. You may end up losing another seat, and now you're looking crazy. It's where are we going to stop with that?
But if Texas changed its rules to steal 5 seats in the House. Okay, so that's why California did what they just did Tuesday to get 5 seats back.
So if I shoot you, if you shoot me back, is that justified? Like that doesn't.
Of course it's not. Of course it's not. But you can't let the Republicans steal control of the House of Representatives when they shouldn't be holding the House of Representatives next year in November.
It's break time here on Square Off. Thanks for watching us on squareoff.net. Great to have you. Here's Howard. We'll be right back with the end of an era in Maryland politics, national politics. Go ahead, Howard.
Thank you, Richard. For breakfast, lunch, and dinner, your choice for a great meal starts at the Double T Diner. And all the menu choices are served the entire day. All day long, you can get breakfast, lunch, or dinner. The Double T Diner has locations all over town. Route 40 West, Perry Hall, White Marsh, Bel Air, Laurel, Annapolis, Pasadena, and the EC Diner in Ellicott City. You've never seen a menu with so many selections. It's why the Double T Diner wins so many reader polls year after year. Plus, Monday nights are a lobster night at By the Docks, part of the Double T family. By the Docks in Middle River. Let them know you heard about them on Square Off. And if you're experiencing any kind of foot pain that requires medical attention, I recommend Dr. Kelly Gagan, a well-respected board-certified podiatrist and heel specialist. No one is immune from foot problems. And also, if your concern is the appearance of your feet, Dr. Gagan has a long record of success using laser treatments to correct this issue. Plus, they're safe and painless and go right to the root of the problem. You can believe me, because I'm a cured patient, and so is Richard. So don't suffer from the agony of defeat. Start winning with a call to Dr. Gagan at 410-753-4422 to set up an appointment. Once again, that's 410-753-4422. Now back to you, Richard.
All right, we don't have time to show my feet, but you can believe they're fabulous because of Kelly Gagan. I always leave with my best foot forward. All right, forget it. All right, finally, the end of a political era. Patricia D'Alessandro Pelosi from Baltimore, from Little Italy in Baltimore, announces she will not be running for re-election in 2026. Chris, what do you have to say about this momentous occasion?
This is the first woman to ever serve as Speaker. She's completing her 20th term. Her 20 years as a House Party leader are the second longest in American history after a man who had a building named after him, Sam Rayburn. President Obama said she made us proud to be Democrats, and she'll go down in history as one of America's greatest ever speakers. You know, I think her achievements are Obamacare, climate reform, Wall Street reform. We were so lucky to have her. And she's somebody who was the face of opposition in the middle of Trump's first term when she stood up in the Oval Office and pointed at him. That is such a famous moment in American history when she became the first voice and face of opposition to a dictator, somebody who was implementing authoritarian politics and killing democratic politics. And we will always be lucky to have Nancy Pelosi in American politics.
Jimmy, then I want to talk to Sheila.
I obviously don't agree with any of her politics, but somebody that ran the House, a lot of respect for her historic career. And look, you can have respect for somebody without agreeing with with their politics. So an amazing run, and appreciate her public service.
No, I want to echo Chris's sentiments about Nancy. She has been a great leader. I think that she realizes that this is a good time for her to come out. There are a lot of individuals who serve until you have to roll them out. And the fact that she's done so much. The other thing that she's done, which I think many folks that come into Congress have some concern about, is she's probably one of the biggest fundraisers for the Democratic Party. And I mean, that's huge. I just pray and hope that she has been mentoring and preparing individuals to pass that baton to them that has that same drive and energy and spirit that she has. I had an opportunity to meet her on many occasions as mayor and city council president, et cetera. I mean, she invited me to hear one of the president's speeches. I think it was Bush. It was the boring speech, but I was able to keep my eyes awake. But
nice side note.
Phenomenal person. And I just want to know who does her plastic surgery, because she has really, she I like to check them out.
Leadership is like a baton that should be passed on, and the success of the next generation is that it's passed on in a timely fashion. I'm not taking anything away from Speaker Pelosi in her service to this country, to the House, to the leadership. I think her greatest legacy will probably be finally stepping aside as Speaker and to pass on the baton to Speaker Jeffries. But at the end of the day, it's really about damn time, right? I mean, I think 40 plus 20 terms in office. At what point do you just stop really being effective in that role? And I think a lot of people in the American society would say the same. I don't believe in term limits. I think elections are term limits. So God bless her that she's lasted that long. But again, it's about passing the baton. And at what point in some of these lives did they say, all right, I've spent for 10 years. Maybe it's time that I start to look at the next generation and pass it on. Like, come on, you're 85 years old. You don't think 20 years ago was about that time?
Hey, we got to stop. We have run over, and that's okay, because it was a really good discussion. all topics today. You guys were great. Sheila, want to thank you and Chris, and we want to thank you, Hassan, Mr. Politics, and our good buddy, Jimmy Mathis. And ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you for helping our audience grow and grow and grow and grow every week at squareoff.net or on, what is it, Chris?
It's
Howard.
it's YouTube at Square Off Show.
YouTube at Square Off Show. All right. So let's root for the Ravens, the new Orioles. Everybody, thanks. We will see you next time. I'm Richard Sher. See you next time. And once again, we square off. Have a great week. Bye-bye.